Namaste and welcome to Vedic Astrology channel. And today we have with us one of the scholars in Sanskrit, Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and he's going to share and enlighten us with his knowledge. Please welcome Vic Dicara. Welcome, Vic, to my channel. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Yes. So what you are going to share with us today, because we have a lot of questions in your mind. So do you want me to ask those questions or how do you want to go for it?
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead and ask a question.
Okay. So we want to know a lot of stuff from you from the Vedic perspective. Okay. So my first question would be, what is the Vedic perception about male and female? And I want to know more about your compatibility research. And you did comprehensive compatibility research recently. So how was it and what exactly are the points we look for when we do compatibility? Because we have that Kutamilan, the traditional way of looking at things, which people are, not happy with it. Or maybe they are having an issue that I have so and so points, so shall I go for it? They have that confusion. So what's your take on this? I would like to know. I have a few other questions as well lined up. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I discovered was that the Kuta Milan system is actually pretty amazing. However, I think people don't really understand what it is, and including the people that are calculating it for you. So it's like doctors using medicine, but not really knowing how the medicine should be prescribed and what diseases for. The medicine itself is pretty great. So one of the things about Kutam system is you have to take a step back and look at it more deeply. And this is basically true for anything that's very old. Because old things come out of very different cultures. So the words that were used in those days had different meanings to people, and people had different feelings about things, and people also behaved in different ways. So you have to take a step back and look at it and see what it really means. And there's a lot of amazing stuff in that system. A lot of the system is based on the male-female dynamic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you have Vasya, right? Vasya and Tara. What do these words mean? If you take a step back and you look at what these words mean, and then it's Sri Dirga. So there's Sri Dirga, Vasya, Tara. The Sri Dirga is a summary of the male-female energy, and then you have Vasya and Tara, which is the caller and the responder. Which is, so you also have a male-female type of dynamic. So this also begs us to explain what the heck a male-female dynamic even is. Because also in the old days, people either, you could say, understood it or just agreed upon what it is. So it wasn't like a debatable thing. But these days we need to re-educate ourselves about it. But it's very, very interesting how you think about any relationship, whether it's romantic or not romantic, you always need a call and a response. Like you need somebody to say, let's go to the mall. And then you just need somebody to say, no, I'm not into that. And then they can say, let's go to the movie. And then somebody says, it's always a call and a response. So you need somebody to initiate a desire, and then you need somebody to fulfill a desire. And that is basically male-female.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Sri Dirga, you have the concept of how far is the woman from the man.
Okay.
Yes. And see, people are also going to have a problem of thinking certain things are sexist. Like, because sexism is rampant. But it doesn't mean that the ancient ideas were sexist. It means that those ideas were exploited. For example, take the caste system, right? It's at this point in time, in this point in history, everybody agrees that was a bad thing. Practically everybody agrees that was bad. So it's kind of like a sexism, racism, casteism kind of thing. Does that mean that when Krishna says that Chatur Varnam Mayashrishtam, that he said, I created the 4 Varnas? Did he create the caste system? Actually, he says, no, Guna Karma Vibhaga. I didn't create the caste system. I created 4 Varnas, and you can differentiate the Varnas based on their quality and their deed. not based on their janma, not based on their birth. But see, so these ideas which became the caste system were originally not the caste system, were very practical, useful, good ideas about how people really are. Some people are intellectual, some people are not.
Yes, and that is
Some
okay.
people are managers. Yeah, some people are not. If you try to make me a manager, or if you try to make me a businessman, like a Vaishya, we're not going to have that much money. But if you try to make a Vaishya a Brahmana and study books and all that stuff, you're not going to have very unbiased ideas, etc. So it's actually just very practical. But over time, it becomes exploited. So it's the same thing with male-female stuff. The fact is that there's terrible sexism, not just in India, but everywhere in the world, right? And even in ways that we don't even know. We don't even recognize it. But that doesn't mean that there's not a difference between men and women.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is to try to solve a problem by saying there's no difference. So that's like anti-Vivek. Vivek is so important. It's part of Buddhi, is Vivek, the ability to differentiate a square from a circle. But if people want to solve problems by eliminating their Vivek and saying squares and circles are both the same. But this is another thing that's so interesting in Gita. Krishna says there's 3 kinds of Buddhi. There's 3 kinds of intelligence: Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic. So the Sattvic Buddhi is the one that we're actually looking for. It's the one that says there's a square and a circle. They're different, but they're both shapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a man and a woman, and the men are different than men, but they're both, like, let's say, humans.
Yes.
So we can see, like, a Sattvic mind sees unity and diversity at the same time, whereas a Rajasic mind just sees the diversity, and a Tamasic mind just sees the unity.
So male and female in Vedic perspective are perceived as 2 different energies.
Yeah.
Yet they embrace the particular energy and celebrate that energy. Being male and being female. That it doesn't judge anything. But it is different energies.
Yeah. And that's also one of the amazing things about Varnashram Dharma in general, which is like the old Vedic way of culture. The interesting, amazing thing about it that people don't get these days is that you didn't have to be X to be good. These days, it's like, are you an engineer? That's nice. Are you a painter? I don't want to marry you.
Oh.
Right? These days, it's like, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, something like that, that's good. Or if you dress with a tie, and that's really cool. But if you don't, I don't know, you're not very good. You have your son or your daughter, you want them to be a certain way.
Yes.
You make them grow up to be that way, and you make them practice doing that. But Varnashram Dharma was not like that at all. The whole principle of Varnashram Dharma is that everybody has a Varna. Everybody has a color, their own color. Their own part of the spectrum.
Right.
And that's what they should be. And that's what if you're A, that's great, be A. If you're B, that's great, be B. If you're C, be C. We need all kinds of types of people. It's the same thing with male and female. Women are especially great at certain types of things and perform certain ways naturally. Great. We need that. Men have different talents that they're certain that and we need that too. It's not that a man has to be like a woman in order to be good, or that a woman has to be like a man in order to be good. And that's the women's, since the 60s, maybe the 50s and 40s even, women have been trying to come out from underneath this huge rock of oppression. But one of the mistakes that has been made in that is in trying to be more like men, trying to take male positions more. In effect, all they're just saying is men are better than us, but we can be like them. The Varnashram Dharma would never take that approach. It would say, be more like a woman, you'll be better. Because women are automatically good.
Already good. Yes.
Yeah. So what are the differences? Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. How do you use these energies into the compatibility? Like we have in compatibility, we always talk about the ascendant and moon. So what is your approach? What are the few things you definitely look for if you're looking for the compatibility? And I have also seen the 4 types you talk about, like good relationship, short term, bad relationship, short term,
Yeah.
good relationship, long term, bad relationship, long term.
Yeah.
So, and then moon, ascendant, those nakshatras, there are so many things apart from the Kutamilan. So,
Yes.
how do you go about that? What are the things which you like to share about? Like,
Yeah, sure.
how do you go?
I'll share that. But first, let me just finish up the thing about men and
Yeah,
women.
sure, sure, sure.
Let's figure out all that we said so far is that they're actually are different. Men are the archetype of women is Venus, and
Yes,
the archetype of men is Mars. And if you understand those planets really clearly, what they symbolize, you'll understand everything you need to know. And if you don't understand the difference between a man and a woman, it's going to be very difficult for you to have a male-female relationship. And it's even going to be difficult for you to have a female-female or a male-male relationship.
right.
Because in all relationships, people take those roles anyway, even if the gender is not physically manifest as male. In a relationship, somebody's going to move into the female role and somebody's going to move into the male role. So basically, there's just Prakriti and Purusha is what it boils down to.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So the Prakriti is the thing which pra means for and kriti means doing.
Mm.
So Prakriti or Stri means that will make things grow.
Mm.
Will make things bigger. Will make things increase and expand. So and Purusha means the one that like drives the car, like drives the thing. So what you have with Mars, for example, Mars is like the one who calls, who has a desire, who has a mission. There's like the general that wants to go out and conquer the country,
Mm.
but the woman is the one that the male wants to get. The male wants to conquer. So you have this. Actually, it boils down to a really simple thing. Like women are like it's like magnetic forces, north and south poles. So like women, not women. Another really important thing to realize is that everybody is different. So now I'm talking about the female archetype, but every female has a different mixture of everything in her. Not every female is actually very feminine, but not every male is very masculine. But the feminine archetype is to pull, right? So actually, when a female feels attracted to a male, it's very different than when a male feels attracted to a female. When a female feels attracted to a male, she thinks this guy is worthy of me. I would feel fulfilled if this guy would come and try to pay attention to me, come to me. And that's what she'll try to do is she'll try to draw him to her, make him notice her and come this way. Whereas when a man feels attracted to a woman, he thinks, that's the one I want. That's the one that's going to make everything right for me.
Yes.
So he's going to go rushing towards her and figure out how can I get past her defenses or how can I get past all the obstacles that are between me and her. So what you have a basic fundamental difference, and it's reflected just in the body. The body, the male genitals comes out of his body and goes in, and the female genital goes into her body and things go in there. So the physical shape of the body is a reflection of the emotional state of the genders. So if you understand that well, you don't do a Sri Dirga mistake, which is pushing a female energy into performing a male role of making all the first moves and coming to get you, and you honor that. You make a woman feel that she's worthy of your attention. That's why in the Vedas they always say the woman will be honored. You should honor the woman. Oh. They're talking in romance now. They're talking that the man will honor, like they'll even be talking about sex, and they'll be saying the man will honor the woman. It's the honor to pay attention to somebody, to respect the woman by your attention, and that makes the woman feel like I'm great. I'm great. I'm worth it. And that's what people like. Right. So basically, a good relationship is where that works, where you have a man who is attracted to the thing that the woman is. So the woman feels like she's worthwhile, and she gives herself to that man. That's a nature of woman is she'll give herself to the man who appreciates her. So a good relationship is always you got a man that appreciates this particular woman, and this woman wants that particular man to appreciate her. There's something about him that she wants him to be the one that appreciates, and then he goes to get her, and she gives himself to her. Now you can see, now the astrology of compatibility relationships is all about trying to predict.
Exactly.
And you don't only have to do it by astrology.
Yeah. I have one more question. Like, if a man has a more feminine qualities, we consider him as a female role in the relationship. And
but now it's difficult for him to get a relationship.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, let me answer. But
okay,
and I can answer you firsthand because I'm not a very masculine man, so I have very few relationships in my life because it's in my whole life, and I'm just an Italian guy in New York. I didn't grow up in a traditional, what do you say, like a traditional culture, or anything that's trying to make less relationships. I was in a regular New York Italian environment, but I have very few girlfriends, anything like that. Reason is because I didn't have a very masculine mentality. Right. So, and the same thing with when a woman, when she has a very masculine mentality, she'll also find it's difficult to find a man that matches her. So, but what you ideally want to do is when you have a woman that's much more masculine than usual, either she'll be attracted to other women because of that, or she would be attracted to a man who needs a woman who's much more masculine than usual, like somebody like me.
Right.
So like a man who's more feminine than usual will miss every opportunity, will sit around and wait, will expect a woman to be attracted to him, will wait for a woman to initiate things. So every opportunity will be missed. If he happens to come across a woman that's got a little bit of spunk, a little bit of male fire to her, where she's going to actually come and talk to him even though he's ignoring her, that relationship will actually work. So that is the deal. And I found that because I've dealt with so many couples over the years, I've always found that the really girly girls get attracted to the really manly men and vice versa. So like, football players really go for cheerleaders. It's like a real match. But then like the artsy guys, they get more attracted to like the video game playing girls and stuff. So the more middle of the road you are with your personal gender, the more you get attracted to the more middle of the road on the other side.
Yes.
And the other thing too is that just because you're feminine, there's a difference between sexuality and mentality, or right, gender. So a man can be extremely feminine without being homosexual at all, or a man can be very masculine and also be homosexual. So that's a different story.
Yes.
Which you could also figure out with astrology which parts are affecting the mentality, whereas which parts are actually affecting the literally sexual parts of the chart.
And you use all these into the compatibility, which you
in the compatibility report that I have, I wrapped up, I think it's 5 different things. I wrapped in something called synastic geometry, which is where you're looking for patterns between particular planets. Then I did cross-chart conjunctions and cross-chart aspects, and then various single-chart factors, and then the Kuta system.
Wow.
So the single-chart aspects are also really interesting things, because sometimes you'll get a situation where one of the partners has got a chart that's really good for long-term relationships, the other one doesn't. And how does that work out? So what I found, the system that I developed from the research was you can actually kind of just like average their points together.
Okay.
So because one person can compensate, and you'll see that in practicality. If one person is really good at a relationship, but another is not so good at relationships, the one person that's really good at it kind of helps the other one learn how to be in a relationship. But if they're too different, then it's going to be difficult to get that average to be over the border that you need. What else? What else should we talk about?
Yes. So this was the question, like how exactly you look for the compatibility apart from these 5 points when you have a chart in front of you or a compatibility. What are the things you go for?
Well, you have to put the charts together into a bi-wheel. You composite the chart.
Yeah, maybe. But what is your approach? How you go for it, so that even we can learn it, and what are the most things you go for?
Single quick things you can do to look for. You have to realize though that single thing, like little quick things don't always work. For example, like you
Exactly.
could make a statement like, if you smoke cigarettes, you'll get cancer. And that basically is just the truth. But sometimes a person can smoke cigarettes and not get cancer, and sometimes somebody can get cancer without smoking cigarettes. So in the same way, I can say, like, if one person's Jupiter really strongly influences something in the other person's chart, then they're going to have a really good relationship, and that's the truth. But there's other factors at play too, which might negate it or which might make it also work even if the Jupiter isn't there. But one of the things to look for is if you have a benefic planet from one person's chart. So you have to put the two charts together so you can see these things easy. And the way you do that is you just put them on the same wheel. So like if the man has a Venus in Virgo and the woman has a Venus in Leo, you just draw a wheel or whatever kind of chart you want to have with your zodiac and put like a pink Venus for the woman in Virgo and a red one for the man in Leo. So you can see it all at once. So if you have a benefic like Venus or Jupiter, those are the really strong benefics. If they're aspecting or conjoining something in the other person's chart really strongly, really exactly, then that's a match that's going to like be a Band-Aid for any of the other difficulties in the relationship. Conversely, if you have a malefic like Saturn or Mars that are strongly conjoining or aspecting the other person's points, unless it's also a Saturn or Mars,
right, then
you'll find that whenever you have a strong conjunction or an aspect, the people are going to come together and have a relationship. They'll be drawn to each other. But it can be one of those situations where it's long-term difficult. When you have a strong conjunction from a malefic to the other person's chart.
Okay. So let me ask you some examples. As in, suppose I have a debilitated Venus in my chart, and in partner's chart, Venus is exalted. It may be in any house. You can take it any house. Let's say it's in the 4th house.
Yeah.
If that matters, or if it is important, or otherwise just a debilitated planet in one chart, and other partner has either Mars there or Venus in the Pisces. So how exactly this is going to help the partner with the debilitated Venus? Or how exactly? I was just wanted to...
Yeah. Well,
how it works.
This system would isolate whether it's debilitated or not. But it would only... The main system here, this would be what I call synastриc geometry. So you would just say, here's Venus in Virgo. There's... For person A, there's person B has Venus in Pisces. They're close to 180 degrees apart because they're 7 signs from each other. So the shape that they form is called a pole. And the pole is the most compatible shape. It's the whole principle of opposites attracting each other.
Right.
Where that other person has the qualities that you lack and you want and you need. And so but it's mutual. So they feed each other. So it's one of these things where when things are opposite in the zodiac, the relationship is not boring at all. You're like constantly learning and experiencing things from the opposite point of view. It's also not always smooth or easy relationship. It's like bumpy but exciting but it's really important. It pulls together, it holds together. So that would be a great case where one person is. Oh, how about Mars? It's a great case if they're the same planet, for sure. And they're on opposite sides of the zodiac. It's a great case if it's any planet also, but you have to think, well, it would have been better if it was Venus than if it was Mars. But Mars on the other side from Venus will do the male-female thing.
Exactly.
In this particular case, right? Like if it was other planets, we would have other interpretations, but having Mars exactly across from Venus is going to be like, well, that's a compelling male-female,
it
opposites
is opposite.
attraction.
It is opposite from each other, and male-female from Venus and Mars.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like really something. Now, 2 things you want to look further is, or at least one thing is, how exact is the alignment? We get a ballpark figure that they're 7 signs apart. But are they like 151 degrees? Because it's possible to be like 151 degrees, or are they 180 exactly? to actually look at the degrees of the planets. The more exact the alignment is to the basic shape that it has from the signs, the more that particular pattern is the thing that defines the relationship. So, for example, maybe the boy has Venus at 1 degree Virgo and the girl has Venus at 29 degrees Pisces. But she has Mars at 1 degree Gemini. So the 1 degree Gemini will be exactly square to that. It'll be exactly 90 degrees to the Venus Virgo.
Right.
So that particular shape would be more dominant in the relationship than the opposition. Even because the opposition is more weak. It's not as exact.
So it is all about the degrees, the exact degrees of the planet.
Yeah, well, the basic signs define the basic shapes, and then the exact degrees show you how intensely has this shape formed. Because you'll have plenty of shapes when you look at two people. It's never going to be that there's just one shape. There's going to be maybe a dozen shapes that forms. So then you want to sort it out. Which one is the most dominant shape?
Right. Great. So I have one more question. Like, we always talk about the importance of communication in relationship. So what is the significance of Mercury and Rahu and Ketu? Because I have seen one of your posts where you share Mercury is one of the giant killer, which really spoils the relationship. So how exactly that works? Like, we never give importance to Mercury. We talk about communication. We think about the moon Rashi, its placement from the male, female, ascendant, sun, nakshatra. But what is the importance? What's all about that Mercury?
This was really eye-opening for me when I did this. Just, like putting charts through statistical analysis and seeing what came out with math, not putting any bias into it. It kept on coming up that these couples that had bad relationships had Mercury something or other. Like, especially Ketu conjoined Mercury was like constant. Like one person's Ketu conjoined the other Mercury. It was like in every case. Or something weird about the Mercuries was always conjoined. So a couple of things dawned on me is, one thing is relationships these days are different than relationships were even 2 centuries or 1 century ago. So a lot of the techniques that are coming from 5-10 centuries ago are going to miss some of the important things that we have in relationships today. So, for example, today, there's much more egalitarianism in the world. Like we were talking about initially, people are trying much more to just equalize everything. And in romantic relationships, there's much less of like, you're the husband, you're the wife, you do this, I do that. Everything is much more shared. And the role of friendship because Mercury, first of all, is the planet of fairness, like sameness. And Mercury is a planet of friendship, peers, equality. So the importance of equality in marriages is probably highly overlooked. And everybody's trying to say, oh, well, I'm the man, so you should listen to what I say. I'm the caller, you should be the responder. And then the woman says, no, I don't want to do that. Or you should say something reasonable, then I'll follow it. So people need to think that actually, in this day and age, Mercury is quite important in relationships, which is where you learn how to be. This is what, like, now I was analyzing Donald Trump recently too. Like, Trump has the sun in Mercury very prominently. So this is not like the kind of thing that works in a modern relationship where you don't want to be the sun sun in Gemini. You don't want to be the sun in Gemini, a king coming into a position where you're supposed to be a friend.
Right.
Like, learn how to be friends. Learning how to be friends and treat the other person as an equal. That's the Mercury flaw. If your Mercury is flawed, that's going to be the big problem in the relationship. K2 is really showing friends can communicate real easy.
Yeah.
Because they don't hide anything from each other because they have nothing to lose. They're just open. That's the trademark of Sakyarasa, which is Sakyarasa is Mercury Rasa, which is friendship, relationship. or sometimes called priyata, like it's where it's affection. So the relationship there is like it's easy to communicate because you're on the same level and you just talk. So a lot of couples can't talk because they're artificially trying to have some kind of a role or be different than the other person. Couples need to learn to be friends and be the same and not, like I said, the sattvic buddhi is one that can see the differences and the sameness at the same time. The rajasic one just separates and the tamasic one just tries to make it the same. So you need to have your Mars and your Venus for sure, where a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and the woman is being the woman, the man is being the man, or whatever. Somebody's being the man, somebody's being the woman. But you also need to have your Mercury in this relationship too.
Right. I have. This was a really eye opener. The Mercury. We always talk about moon for the communication. I have few other questions as well. When people are in love and they have decided to go for it, like they have decided to marry, and then they look for the charts, and then they see it is terrible, and they feel that they still love. What they should do? What's your thought? They should not follow astrology and follow their heart and go for it and face the karma? Or do we have any remedies, or how to approach it? Because people go to astrologer once they fall in love and they decide to marry, and when families come in, right?
Yeah, that's the wrong time.
This is one question. And when we are in bad relationship and we are going through bad dasha, that bad relationship feels good. So, how to go for it, because people are scared of these things, which I have observed in my work. So what's your take on this? How we can deal with this?
One thing that I thought was an eye-opener was in studying the Puranas or Mahabharata. I haven't studied Ramayana, but in studying Mahabharata and the Puranas, I didn't find one single case where anybody was married on the basis of astrology. that is a huge eye opener, because Indian people are going to think this is our Vedic culture, is that we consult the astrologer. It's not the Vedic culture; it's an Indian custom. See, Vedic culture is much older than Indian custom. Indian custom has grown out of Vedic culture, which is ancient, pre-Christian era India. It's a very long time ago. So when you're reading the stories in the Puranas and Mahabharata, you're reading about what India was like really at its roots. So they didn't even use astrology for marriage at all. And the way they would do it is very, very interesting. It's the girl would just fall in love with a guy, or the guy would fall in love with the girl, and then they would ask advisors, what do you think about this? And then the girl would ask her parents as one of her key advisors, what do you think about this? But even if the parent wouldn't like it, usually even if the parent didn't like it, they would still say okay anyway. But even if they protested, the girl would often get married anyway. And you cannot have a more prominent example from this than Shiva and Parvati. Shiva fell in love with, Parvati fell in love with Shiva before he was even Shiva, right? But when he was Rudra. So Parvati fell in love with Rudra, and she was asking her parents, what do you think? I think this guy's a great, great guy. And her father, Daksha, was like, this guy is the worst. He doesn't even have a place to live. I don't want you to marry somebody that doesn't have a place to live. And she married him anyway. Of course, that turned out to be a disaster in the end. But it's showing an example of a lot of the ways that we think about how Vedic culture would do things is not really how Vedic culture had done things at all, where the parents arrange marriage, the daughter has no say in it.
Mm-hmm.
The sun has no say in it, or they consult an astrologer and it's not about love. And then we have these special relationships called love marriages, right?
Yeah,
As if it's
exactly.
so strange to have a love marriage. Vedic culture was all about love. All marriages were love marriages, but they also checked. So then let's say you fall in love with somebody, you want to get married, and then you go see an astrologer, and the astrologer says this is a terrible relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're already in love, so the astrologer must have missed something
Right.
if they didn't see that there's something good in this relationship. Otherwise, how would you have been bound together in the first place? But what you can do is first of all, another problem with how people approach astrologers is they just go to any damn astrologer, or they'll go to 15. Like, that's really not wise, because this astrologer is telling you, is whether or not they're good at it, they're telling you things that you cannot verify. They're telling you things, right, from beyond. You better trust that person. Like, don't like find the first sign on the street that says astrologer and go in that door and ask them to tell you about your life. First of all, find a person that you trust. Whatever this person is going to tell me is going to be reasonable, and I should try to figure it out. It's worth my effort to try to believe or figure out what this person is going to say. So don't just go to any astrologer down the street, or because your auntie did it with this, use this particular astrologer, you use that. So I trust that this person understands the situation. So let's say you have such an astrologer and the person says this relationship isn't going to work. So what you want to do is you say, why? What is it that would break this relationship? Then, because the thing is that love, and this is how I open my compatibility report, is by telling people that love is not actually a part of karma.
Oh, is it?
It's not a part of karma. You see, bhakti is not generated by karma. What is that? Bhakti comes from bhakti only. It's a self-generating thing. Love doesn't come from it. You don't get love from a machine. You don't have a formula that makes love. You can get likes from karma. Like preferences, you get preferences from karma. But love is different. Love is not like. Love is where you feel happiness by giving yourself to the object of love. Like is where you feel happiness by experiencing an object. So love doesn't get generated by karmas. Love gets generated only by bhakti, by love. It's spontaneous. It only comes on its own. So love is a very powerful thing.
Yeah,
it's the most powerful thing. It's more powerful than karma. So, but you're going to try to express or experience this bhakti in the world of karma with a person born with karma and everything, and you have karma. So what you can do is, if you feel that, wow, there's really love in this relationship, then you can take the negative compatibility report as your diagnosis. Like, if I got a diagnosis from a doctor that I have cancer, then I'm going to die, I would ask the guy, where's the cancer? What's causing the cancer? So how can I change my behavior? How can I alter my behavior? That's the remedy. What's the remedy? How can I alter my behavior so that whatever I'm doing that's producing this cancer, I stop doing that so I can live longer? It's the same way if I'm in love with somebody and then I get a compatibility report that says you guys are going to get a divorce, then I would say, why? What's in this report? What is the clashing? What planet's clashing with what? What does it tell me about what's making this divorce? Once a person is aware, see, also there's other things that are more powerful than karma too. Karma, jnana, bhakti. So jnana is also more powerful than karma. This is why rishis are more powerful than devas. You see, jnana is more powerful than karma, and bhakti is more powerful than jnana. So your karma can be defeated by a lot of things, by jnana also. So just being aware, jnana means you have comprehension or awareness of something. But just being aware that, I have this tendency to talk over her because my sun is doing something, or my Saturn is doing something with her Mercury. And so she feels sad about communicating with me. So if I have gyan about that, if I have knowledge about that, I can step away from it a bit and not do it so much, right? So the astrology reports shouldn't just be taken as a yes or a no, but they should be taken as a remedy in and of themselves. That this is going to tell me how I can be better in this relationship.
Right. Yes. So if I have a terrible score, just we need to focus on the areas we need to work on. That's what we
Yeah.
should do.
Yeah, but be realistic too, because like you said, a lot of times, see, love has no logic to it. That's why it's not produced from karma or jnana. You can't even produce bhakti from jnana. It doesn't have logic. So in some cases, you would be in love with somebody that makes no sense to be in love with.
Yes.
And if you dedicate yourself to that love, there's nothing wrong with that, because love also gives the highest reward. Love gives more reward than jnana and more reward than karma. But you should just realize that it can be very difficult. And do you actually want? Is your love actually that strong that you're going to be able to go against all this karma that's going in the opposite direction and jnana that's going in the opposite direction? Easiest thing is to fall in love with somebody that works karmically and makes sense.
Wow. So yes, so
but you can't choose who you fall in love with, so because bhakti is independent. So
yes. Okay, so I have some other questions regarding the spiritual aspect of the life. Like, suppose if person is seeking spirituality, what Vedas talk about this? Like, is spirituality is for everybody? Is it okay not to be spiritual, or is it that we are all spiritual being ourselves? So what's the take? Those who are seeking God and are living in this modern day and age, they have confusion around them. Like, so what's your take on them? What will you tell them? And when these guys come into the relationship, may not be the other partner may not be that compatible, or how exactly you look for these scenarios. You can take the relationship part later on, but
okay,
how to seek God?
So it's very similar to the thing that we talked about with Varnashram before and how it's different than modern society. Like the way Varnashram is fundamentally different than modern society is you don't need to be any particular thing to be valued in the society. Whatever you already automatically are, that is what is going to be valued. And you contribute in whatever you are is the way you contribute. So in the Vedic approach to spirituality is exactly the same to that. And we have it's hard for us to understand it with our modern minds. Our modern minds tend to think that there is a spiritual path and we should follow it or not follow it. But the Vedic approach to spirituality is everybody has a unique path. That can be grouped into categories of paths. Like we have a basic umbrella of bhakti marg, jnana marg, and karma marg. But those are umbrellas that have many, many, many subpaths in them. Because each person is a different individual. So their conception is going to be different. What they can digest, what they can appreciate at that stage is going to be different. So Vedas never prescribe like one spiritual path for everybody. This is why when Westerners first came to India and started looking at the Vedas, they were like, this is crazy. There's like 500 different religions here. And, they wanted to say on the other side of Indus River there's a bunch of Hindus. But when they went on the other side of the Indus River to find out what the Hindus believe in, there's like 500 different, and they're still not used to that because over there on their side of the border, they got Protestants and Catholics, which are basically exactly the same. Slight differences, but they come over here and they go to India and there's like wildly different, like all kinds of crazy differences. But they're not like fighting with each other. Like the Protestants and Catholics are like this much different and they're killing each other. But in India, there's like all kinds of different approaches to spirituality and they're all coexisting happily with each other. So that's the thing about the Vedas. It's like, okay, karma marga is for you because this is the kind of person you are. But for another person, karma marga is not good. encourage them to go live in an ashram.
Mm.
But for another person, the ashram life is not good. Encourage them to go do social work, or encourage them. They're ready for bhakti mark.
Mm.
So you have to. It's just like medicine. Like you might say, like I don't know what's a medicine, like penicillin. Penicillin is a good medicine? Is it a bad medicine? Or I don't know, some other medicine, like what's like a malaria medicine?
Mm.
Is it a good medicine or is it bad medicine? Well, it's a really bad medicine if you give it to the wrong person.
Mm.
But it's a really good medicine when you give it to the right person.
Mm.
So, and that's why the Vedas are difficult, because Vedas are like a big pharmacy with all kinds of medicines in them, spiritual medicines, and also we don't divorce spiritual life and material life too. Whereas they do that in the West. They make them highly different. But the Vedas are like this big pharmacy of, we're just going to call it life with material and spiritual. So there's a whole bunch of medicines for life, but you need a doctor. That's why the guru is very important. The doctor is the guy who knows the medicine and can say, this particular patient needs to apply this particular medicine. So guru is going to be able to say, you need this advice from the Vedas. Whoosh. Forget about that other bit over there. That's for other people that have other adhikari. They have other inclination, or they're qualified for something else. But guru is not some guy who just makes up his own stuff. That's also not guru. That's a modern prevalent disease, is you get these gurus just going around making up their own things. Let's just hug each other, and that's our spiritual path. Or let's just totally reinvent some new thing. Worship me, and that's their spiritual path. That's not really a guru in the Vedic sense of the word. The Vedic sense of the word, a guru is somebody that knows the Vedas, knows you, and knows which part of the Vedas to apply to you. It's not like they invented a new spiritual path.
Okay, so one more question I have. We have time, right? We have time. Okay, so one more question is, we talk about the Bhagavad Gita, and we always talk about the law of karma, and Bhagavad Gita, law of karma and astrology. So how important is it to learn Bhagavad Gita?
Bhagavad Gita I recommend above all other books, because what Bhagavad Gita is an encapsulated version of everything that's important in the Vedas. Because at the beginning of Kali Yuga, Vyas came because he realized that the Vedas were too big. There was too many of them, and that nobody would be able to study them. So he tried to organize them and make them more studyable. But after he did that for several generations, they were still big.
Right.
And still too much. There had to be one sage in charge of each branch, and there were 5 branches. So he said, let me do something myself. So the first thing that he tried to do was to condense everything, like uber condense it. So he made a sutra, and that was the first time that we got a sutra. And it was called the Brahma Sutra, which is the sutra of the Vedas, or Vedanta Sutra is another name for it. And when he was done with that, he had in like this many leaves. The whole Veda is encapsulated in that. But then he took a look at it and showed it to other people, and they're like, I can barely understand this. It's too encoded. You have to be a Gyani to understand this. So he said, well, that's a problem, because this is Kali Yuga coming. There's not going to be that many Gyanis. So then he said, let me try again. Let me take the content in this little Gyani book and make it easy for everybody to understand, without wrapping it around a lot of stories and putting it in people that actually talk about it and exemplify it and illustrate it. So he wrote Mahabharata. Second. Now, Mahabharata basically is the Bhagavad Gita. You see, Bhagavad Gita is the climax of Mahabharata. So Mahabharata basically is like a big ring, and Bhagavad Gita is like the diamond on the ring. So the whole setup of Mahabharata basically is to bring the reader to the Gita. So what Vyas put into the Gita is what he put into Vedanta Sutra, but in a way more easy to understand format. So if you can just study one thing, study that, study Gita, because it's got karma. It explains karma marga, jnana marga, bhakti marga, puts them all into perspective, explains the different adhikaris for them, who should do what, and it even tells you how to do each part, how to do karma yoga, how to do jnana yoga, how to do bhakti yoga. So that's great. It's in what, like, so just a few verses. You could read it very easily. You could study it very easily.
So where does astrology as a science of understanding one's karmic pattern is related with this, or how exactly you look at these?
This is another thing. Like we think like arranged marriage or astrologically based marriage is a very Vedic thing. It's not. It's an Indian custom.
Right.
Also, astrology is an Indian thing. Vedic, not as much. The Vedas use astrology for other purposes.
Okay.
Not really as much as we do now for saying what kind of person am I. Because those people didn't need planets to tell them what kind of person they were. They had clear minds. They could sit down and meditate. They already knew there's much easier ways. If you're at a certain adhikari where you can actually have a clear mind, you don't need an astrologer to tell you what your personality is like or what you're going to be doing or what you should be doing. You can just clear your mind and think and experience it firsthand. So, and also India is very prosperous, especially before the deserts came into the northern section. India was very prosperous, had all kinds of resources. It's the only country in the world that was completely self-sufficient. They didn't need to trade with anybody to get anything. People used to just come in there to try to get stuff. Gold, spice, food, anything. It was all there in India. Whereas if you go towards the Mediterranean, you get deserts and a lot of warfare, like way more warfare, and scarcity. So people would worry a lot more in those parts of the world. What's going to happen to me tomorrow? Am I going to be okay? Whereas in India, people were not worried like about what's going to happen to me tomorrow. Everything's cool. So they weren't like looking for a divination system to like predict what is it going to be okay next year, because they already knew it was okay next year. The way that they used astrology in the Vedas was very proactive instead of reactive or emergency. It wasn't like emergency astrology. It was very proactive astrology. It was like, I want to do this. How should I do it and when should I do it? So it was a function. It was ingrained as a kind of like the scheduling function of how to perform the Vedic ceremonies. That's what the role that astrology played was. You want to do this. Like, let's say you want to have children. So when should you do it and how should you do it? Well, you should do it. You should begin by doing the ceremony. And that should be performed on such and such an occasion when the moon is here and Mercury is there and all those things. So here, let's find that date for you. Okay, boom, here. Now perform. That's how astrology was in Vedanga Jyotish and in those old things. You do find out in the Puranas that there were natal astrologers, because there's Garga Muni who came to Krishna and gave a reading. And there's unnamed astrologers that came to Parikshit Maharaj and gave a reading when he was born. So that was there, but we don't have any record like of how they did it. It wasn't recorded like it wasn't even the system. It didn't even mention specifics that like you could read Bhagavad Purana what Garga Muni said about Krishna's future, but you're never going to find like he said this because Jupiter was here or something. So we don't have like a record of even the system that they used. All that we know is that they didn't use Rashis very much at all. That they mostly used nakshatras, and that they care about the ascending nakshatra. There's a hint of that, and that they care about the moon's nakshatra, and that they care about the sun's nakshatra. But it's very hard to have any other surviving record except for Vedanga Jyotish, which is mostly telling you how to calculate calendars for the ceremonies. So how does that mean that you don't need astrology to know who you are? No, you do. It's great. You don't need it. Like I say, like different people, different strokes for different folks. So if an astrology reading helps you understand who you are, then don't let anybody tell you that it's not for you. But if you feel like I'm not that into astrology, don't let somebody tell you no, you need astrology. You won't be able to know yourself or grow spiritually unless you get into astrology. There's different strokes for different folks. Whatever way you can get open to communication from the divine, use that way.
Yes, great. Yes. One more question I have is, what is the significance of Rahu and Ketu in the relationship? Do you give importance to?
In relationships?
Yeah, in relationships. In your geometry, which you said, or synchronicity, which you talk about.
Yeah.
In relationship.
I don't.
Or anything which you consider it.
So I ran through different scenarios with different patterns that would give accuracy or not. And for the question of longevity, there's different planets that give accurate results for longevity and different, because I separate, as you mentioned earlier, like the longevity relationship from the pleasantness of it. Because you can have pleasant short, pleasant long, unpleasant short, unpleasant long. And so as far as I remember, Rahu and Ketu didn't give Ketu gave a somewhat accurate result for goodness, the pleasantness of it. But primarily where I use Ketu and Rahu is in the conjunctions. So if somebody's Rahu or Ketu is conjunct to something in somebody else's chart, and the way that the interpretation that usually works is you won't be able to talk reason to the person about this. They're going to have an irrational, unnegotiable. It indicates an irrational, unnegotiable aspect of the relationship. This Ketu is conjoined. This, especially if like this person's Rahu and Ketu are like conjoined. They're just going to either love each other or hate each other, or whatever it is, and you're not going to be able to change that.
Okay, you mean to say boys Rahu on other person's Rahu or Ketu, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's more actually. What you'll find with that is that it's just if people are born very close to the same year, like if they're the same age, they'll get that. So it's not too rare. But let's say if we have, let's say person A's got Rahu and Ketu conjoining where person B's Mercury or something is. Then there's going to be something about let's say if it's Ketu with Mercury, that's one of the worst ones, right? Ketu with Mercury is the other person. The person with Ketu is silencing the person with Mercury. They're not letting that person communicate. Or the person with Mercury is bewildered by the other person. End. You know, the Ketu Mercury conjunction, the person who's got the Ketu is like silencing the other person. The person's got the Mercury is bewildered by that person. Not necessarily consciously, but you know, the behavior and everything. So, and it's something that it's very difficult to change. The things that are indicated by Ketu and Rahu are way below the intellectual level, way below the rational level.
They are subconsciously happening.
Yeah, and people, there's no way to verify this, but a common thought is that when Rahu and Ketu are indicating something, it's because this pattern is continuing from this relationship existed in the previous life and it had this pattern, and you're still working on this. Because Rahu and Ketu are known for spanning past, present, and future.
Right.
So it's not that much practical information, but this is one of those mystical things that people say when Rahu is an important part in the relationship. You know, when there's something about the way the Rahus interact or the Ketus interact between the two charts, it's a continuing relationship from previous lives.
Okay. So if somebody has this, what they should do? Like somebody has Ketu over the Mercury of the boy or girl, what they should do? They should communicate with each other more, or how they can do as a if I'm diagnosed with this, if somebody is diagnosed with this, astrologer told them that, or astrologer sees them, how they can work upon this to make this relationship.
First, my first advice as a doctor would be take it slow, because this thing doesn't change right away. So if you think that this is going to change right away, you'll just get frustrated and think it's hopeless. Take it slow and be proud of any gain that you make on it. And I would you would have to make these people do things pretty rigidly, because it's a very serious, doesn't change easy. So make them like write. Like, for example, let her write. Like, let's say if the boy's Ketu is conjoining the girl's Venus, Mercury. Let her write you a letter. And you sit there.
Let her write, the person
write
with
you a
Mercury.
letter. Okay. And you sit there and read it in front of her slowly and ask her questions about it. And don't argue about it. Just ask her questions about it.
Okay.
Or vice versa. If it's the boy with the Mercury and the girl with the Ketu, put something in writing, have the other person sit there and not try to shut it off. Just try to read it and understand it. Or then also Mercury has other things. You never know how exactly the thing is going to play out until you see the whole person. But another way that Mercury Ketu conjunction would be there's no fun. Ketu could get rid of the fun from Mercury. Mercury is a very youthful planet. So it's not just talkative, but it's also like fun and relaxed. So there could be no opportunity for relaxation. Maybe the communication is okay because of other things in the chart.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's the relaxation aspect. Just one person is not letting the other person relax, or the other person, or vice versa. This person that's not able to relax doesn't even understand how the other one likes to relax.
Okay.
So they may need to talk. You got to figure out. The other thing, it's good to just sit with the people too and not try to do everything just on paper with the planets. If the astrologer could actually talk to the couple a bit, you save yourself 20 hours of work as an astrologer if you can talk to the actual people. And you also increase your chances of being useful and accurate by about 200% if you just talk to the people a bit. So you figure out, you as an astrologer know, like, these are the possible injuries that an injured Mercury could cause. Let me talk to them a bit and figure out which one it is primarily. And then you can advise some kind of course of action based on that. So if it's relaxation, that's a problem, then, you have to advise. It could be relaxation. It could be even how they just like to be organized. Like, they might be stepping on each other's way of organizing their lives.
Great. So yes, final question to you, like, how people can reach out to you, and if they want a consultation from you, or if they want to get a class on Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga, Ved, how they can reach out to you, or what you would like to tell them?
I'm on the internet.
Yes.
So you just I have a website that's just my name, Vic Dicara.com.
Yes.
And from there you can get in contact with me or whatever.
Yes. Great. So friends, this was Vic Dicara for us. I highly recommend to go and watch his page, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and look out for his work from Bhakti Yoga, Bhagavad Gita, and all the readings, consultations. You can directly email him and get in touch with him. Thank you, Vic, for coming on this channel. We want more and more from you.
I want more and more with you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.